improve the health of the watershed, the streams and the water in the streams and the rivers. And you're doing that by minimizing runoff and promoting infiltration. If water infiltrates into the ground, it slows down storm events, so you don't have flash floods in your storm, you don't get as much what we call as total suspended solids, which is simply dirt. Number one pollutant, dirt in the water, not chemicals. So it's just soil runoff is the number one pollutant in streams and rivers. So you want to minimize that runoff, and the most common chemicals are phosphates and nitrates that we're really looking for. So fertilizers and other sources. And that can be from agricultural lands, that can also just be from school properties if they fertilize their lawn or their sports fields to make them look nice and pretty, or even your own house, your own property. You can have those types of things. And then other pollutants are things like E. coli and other fecal coliforms that you're not going to test for because you have to culture those. It takes a minimum of 24 hours to do that, and a lot more money for the equipment to do it also. Yeah. So the whole goal, the whole unit really is understanding watersheds and understanding how to improve your watershed, minimizing runoff, promoting infiltration through conservation practices. So we start right here. I heard somebody say as we walked out, a whole bunch of impervious surfaces. Yes, there are a whole bunch of impervious surfaces here. So you have the concrete, impervious. There's no water going to get through this. It's all going to run off somewhere. Bricks are a slightly better choice, but not this setup of bricks, because these are also impervious pavers. These are not pervious pavers. If they were pervious, when I took a close look at them this morning, they would have bigger gaps between them, and each of the bricks on the sides would have little tabs sticking out of them as part of the brick that keeps them spread apart. They would also, instead of this sort of hard, packed, there's sand in there, that's just the top layer. These are actually set in a more of a substrate that is impervious, so they don't move or anything like that. The pervious ones, or porous pavers, you could have both, pervious and porous, would be much different. They'd be porous because they would have a whole bunch of, it would look more like really, really rough sandpaper with almost like little dents and holes and things in it. It actually is porous. Water can go through the brick itself. And it's pervious, how they lay it down, because you have to put about 16 inches of different sizes of gravels and sands, and working your way up from really large particles at the bottom to smaller particles so you come up to your pavers. And that allows water to soak through and promotes infiltration also. So even though the bricks are a little bit better, in this case, they're still mostly impervious. Grass, pervious or impervious?
Impervious.
Most lawns are only pervious to about 4 inches. So we really classify mowed areas, grass areas, as impervious. Most of the water is going to run off. Most of the water will run off. It's being compacted, especially around buildings. It's already compacted when they put the sod in to begin with. But the grass itself has very short roots, and running the mowers back and forth over it all the time compacts it, and that minimizes the infiltration. Promotes runoff. So if you get a large storm event, you get a 24-hour storm, a couple inches of inch of rain or so, you'll see most of the water running off the grass downhill, downslope in some way. It's not infiltrating in. Only a very small percent will infiltrate it. If you have an unmowed area that you keep as like a natural field, that's pervious. That will create a lot of infiltration because you're going to have a mixed set of plants and roots that are bigger, and you're not compacting it all the time by running tractors and mowers or cars all over it, so it won't be compacted in that top layer.
You could mow a field like that once or twice a
That's fine, yeah. Yeah, you could do that. I mean, it's going to change your percentage of runoff to infiltration the more you're running across it with a tractor, because you're compacting it over time.
I was just going to say, you have to do something though. If you use the field, it'll turn to...
Yeah, you'll be regenerating forest after a while, which would be best. Your best infiltration would be 100% forest. That's a mature forest. It has the soil layers that are separated as you go down. It's not compacted. You have a lot of humus and literally loose soil. That's your best. 100% is your best. And you'll see that in activity 5 when you're using the full model My Watershed. And one of the things that your students do first is that you change your whole area to 100% forest, your whole study area in the model. And that will give you your best amount of infiltration compared to runoff and evapotranspiration. Let's see also, so you got a little garden over there. Is it a rain garden?
I'm not standing for it.
No. A rain garden that would promote infiltration?
No.
Is it a catchment basin?
No.
Is it a bioswale?
No. No. It's all high. It's built high.
Yep. It's a pretty sculptured flower garden.
Yeah.
It is not a conservation practice in any way. It doesn't promote infiltration. There's no water running into it from anywhere that would allow us to call it a rain garden. It would gather water from a larger area and allow it to slowly infiltrate into the ground. It's only capturing any water that hits that square area of there. It's a little better than grass because it has other plants, and they'll use up some of that water also. But technically not a conservation practice. A beautiful sculpture and plant garden though. I also see that they're really heavy on mulch here. Especially on the trees back here. If you're mulching your trees, don't do this.
Very bad.
Don't mound it up over the root ball at the bottom. You're gonna kill that tree over time if they keep doing that.
You can tell because of the cracking and stuff, it actually promotes the water runoff away from it. You know, and it's like
Because of the excess mulch.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you should never put mulch up over where the stem flare is, or the trunk flare is. They're gonna kill that tree if they keep doing that. So they should take some mulch off, old mulch off, and put new mulch on next year if they want it to look pretty like that. But most groundskeepers don't know that. They just keep adding more mulch every year. Okay, so let's go this way and see what else we can find.
So in the activity, does it talk about like the rain gardens and special design at the bottom? A little bit, yeah. Layers. Is that something I could add?
Not a whole lot of detail. You can add more detail if you want to do soil stuff.
Well, I'm just thinking like usually rain gardens have a design in terms of trying to promote infiltration out,
Yeah.
but not with all the detail with it.
Yeah,
That would be something that just
the soil is more porous. It's more of a sandy soil or a sandy loam.
They add layers of stuff.
Yeah, there's a highly constructed one. It'll have gravel layers underneath it also. But the thing that really makes something a rain garden is the plants. It is some of the soil and infiltration, but it's also it's making a garden name. And it's because you're also putting plants there. Otherwise, it would be a retention basin or a bioswale. And those plants are all plants that promote infiltration. So they're probably going to have tap roots, which means they're going to go deeper. They're going to break apart the pockets in the air pockets and spaces in the soil to promote infiltration.
Now, how would you fix
Yes.
this? This is what I meant to ask. How would you fix this in a low-cost situation?
You'd have to tear it all up. Yeah. Yeah, to make even the pavers, pervious, you'd have to tear it up and go down 16, 18 inches.
You couldn't
And
just
put a different
trench
substrate
it, you
underneath.
just couldn't trench it around the edges and maybe put rock or something like that.
You could redirect the water that's running off into something like maybe over here, where that drain is,
Right.
that stormwater drain, that would be a perfect spot for a rain garden. If the water from all this impervious area is going that way, down slope, which it sort of looks like it is, they might have some other storm areas, like that. But you could do that. You could redirect it to a place where there could be a conservation practice in place. The pavers. If there were impervious pavers and porous pavers, you have to have a completely different substrate than they've got this little, they do have a little gravel here, but
Right, I put one of these in, so 16 inches.
yeah, and it has to be layered with
Bigger stone at the bottom.
bigger stone at the bottom, smaller stone as you come up. Yeah, really no dirt, because that's going to compact too much, and especially no dirt with clay, because that'll be impervious.
We have to move.
Yep. How about this garden? They got a little pond there. Is that nice? Are they holding water? Are they promoting infiltration?
Probably lined with
So recycling that water, I'd say
Do we count
probably
it as
not.
Conservation practice?
No.
No, we don't. We don't count it as a conservation practice. If it was a natural area instead of a recycling pond, and it was in a lower elevation than the area around it, and water would flow into it, and sometimes be a pond, sometimes be dry, then we could call it a conservation practice. But I heard that that they probably have a koi in there, the orange, really large goldfish-looking fish. So they want water in there the whole time. It's nice and soothing. You can come out and sit by it. Yeah, and there's lots of research in environmental education that mentions being outside and around natural or man-made looking natural areas is calming and lower stress levels. So it's still really good, but it's not a conservation practice. So just a nice area.
It is a biofiltration.